Welcome, and we're going to get started. We're on a little bit of a time schedule here, so I'm going to start right off, and people will be coming in, that's fine. Welcome, and to those of you who may be watching remotely, welcome to you, and if you're seeing this later, welcome as well. This is the, I'll introduce myself. I'm Eric Hauenstein. I'm chair of the Department of Geography and Environmental Studies and also the Department of Economics, and I'm chair of this faculty senate, and that's why I get to talk to you for a few minutes this afternoon. The State of the University address is usually given in the fall. The faculty senate has asked the president to give us one in the spring. This year because of the crisis in funding from state appropriations that we're all very, very aware of. And I'm going to introduce the president in a moment, but before that I'd like to say just a few things. One of them has to do with the Forward 150 talks that I know that many of you have attended, and many of you probably have not attended. This is an opportunity that we have on every other Friday. Tomorrow is one in the morning from 9:30 to 11:30, and there's one tomorrow afternoon as well at 12:30 because some people haven't been able to go to the morning ones. I've been to a session on each of these, and if you haven't gone, I'd really encourage you to consider it. It's a multi-constituency group, which is fairly unusual, I think, for Northeastern to come together on a very important topic across faculty, staff, administration. We have faculty emeriti, we have alumni attending, students. I imagine that if community members wanted to come, they would be welcome as well. Those people that care about Northeastern and want to help preserve the quality of Northeastern and still move forward under tougher economic times should really consider sharing their voice at these meetings. Now, I've been here for nearly 30 years, and one of the frequent complaints that I've heard is that we're not given an opportunity to participate at the early stages of decision making, that decisions are made and then they're imposed on us, and people resent that. And this is the opposite of what's happening. So I think we should really take advantage of the opportunity to share our views, our perspectives, our fears, concerns, our ideas, our innovative ideas of how we can come out of this. Really, I think we could come out of it ahead, but it is a very difficult time, and we need to address it very, very directly, and we need to hear from everyone at those meetings. I'd like to take an opportunity right now. To thank the president for the invitation of Forward 150. This is as I mentioned, it's a fairly unusual thing here, and it's something that even if you haven't attended, I think and I hope that you feel welcome to attend, and that maybe you will attend. So can we give him a hand for that? Appreciation for doing that. Thank you. I think it's really something that's deserving of appreciation. Now, I'm going to put my faculty senate hat on for just a moment and observe that when I've been to these meetings, the Forward 150 meetings, many of them they appear to me to be underattended by faculty. And that's, I think, surprising in a way and not surprising in a way, because, faculty are, as you know, faculty are very committed, very concerned, very involved, direct access to students. The faculty are smart, knowledgeable by nature and by training, with a lot to offer, a lot of ideas, a lot of innovative ideas as well. At the same time, though, faculty, just by nature, and it's true here as everywhere, they work independently. We work mostly independently. And so I would just encourage faculty to not stay in your offices during this period of time, to not work independently on this topic, but come together with everybody and really pitch your views in. We need to hear from faculty, I think, more than we have been hearing in some of the meetings in Forward 150. So with that, I'll take my faculty senate hat off and say something just to the entire community, because I feel strongly about this. It's important in times of crisis like this to focus very clearly and very thoroughly on the problem itself. And that, I think, we have an opportunity through Forward 150 and other ways to do that. And I think it's important that we do that right now. Because as I see it, we are as I see it, we're at a crossroads at Northeastern. I've never seen us in such a crisis in the nearly 30 years that I've been here. And the way I see it, we have, the crossroads is like this. We could choose to do what we've been doing the same way we've been doing it with less, with fewer resources. Or we could make some changes. And we have to decide what those changes will be if we choose to go that route. But the thing I wanted to add is that even though we're in a time of crisis, I think it's really important that we don't lose sight of the good things that we're still doing, the progress that we're making, the impact that we're having on students, that we continue to have on students and on the region, the good work that we do every day. We should continue to keep that in mind as we address these issues. So with that, I'm going to introduce the president. President Richard Helldobler came to Northeastern in 2013 as provost and vice president of administrative affairs, and was appointed unanimously by the Board of Trustees as interim president in July of 2016. And so he served in the last 5 years in that capacity. This is his first State of the University address. And I would say that these were some of the toughest 5 months. Did I say 5 years? These were some of the toughest 5 months that we've gone through. And I appreciate, and I think we all should appreciate his leadership through this time. And would you please help me welcome President Richard Helldobler.
Good afternoon, Northeastern. Well, it's been 150 days since I took office. In some respects, it seems like only yesterday. In others, Springfield, it seems like an eternity. But in any respect, it is an honor and a privilege to serve the university and our community in this role. Let me start off by thanking you for your support and for your confidence. I would also like to show my appreciations for the contribution to the life of the university as reflected in a variety of representative groups. As you are acknowledged, I ask that you would please stand and that we hold our applause until all the groups are recognized. The newly promoted and tenured faculty, recipients of the Bernard Bramo Research and the Audrey Reynolds Distinguished Teaching Award, Dr. Amina Stojkovic and Dr. Anna Freiman. Excellent awards recipients, teaching professionals, instructors, and academic support professionals. Employees who have earned excellence awards. Faculty who have earned sabbatical and educational leaves. The Human Resource Office, for who's managed payroll changes due to the Fair Labor Standards Act, the new electronic timesheet processing, and electronic processing of FMLA. The University Police, for keeping our new resident hall occupants safe without any increase in positions. Congratulations to the Division of Institutional Advancement on meeting the 2016 goal of the Goodwin Gift Challenge a month early, and on our way to the 2017 goal with more than $127,000 raised since January 1st. To members of the community who have been working with Provost Ramon Lagunas on the Higher Learning Commission accreditation effort. And finally, to the faculty and staff who serve our DACA students. You know, this list could go on and on. As I invited suggestions for appreciation today, I received lots of names, and in fact, whole units, and for so many good reasons. In fact, in this difficult year, everyone has come together and worked hard and creatively. I ask that everyone, yes, everyone, stand to be recognized and shake your neighbor's hand and say thank you. I want to thank all of you for your contributions. You're welcome. You know, in 2013, when I came to the university, I knew this was the place for me. I recognized immediately that the heart and spirit of Northeastern are special and different from those that characterize other colleges and universities. Northeastern's culture affirms the importance of higher education for a wide variety of students, from traditional disciplines to new ones, whether mathematics, entrepreneurship, or counselor education. And the university encourages brave intellectual exploration led by talented and experienced faculty. And it is home to an incredibly diverse student body. So many of Northeastern students will be the first in their families to earn a bachelor's degree when they graduate. For many of them, the quality of their lives and their earnings will exceed those of their parents after they graduate. This is the kind of opportunity that Northeastern provides, and it is in fact what the world needs. When I first took on responsibility as interim president last fall, it was important for me that I start my appointment with a clear list of objectives. In my previous role as Northeastern's provost, I had the distinct privilege of working closely with President Emerita Haas, vice presidents, and members of the faculty and staff, and had an intimate understanding of the challenges that we face as an institution. So I was able to hit the ground running on October 1st. And in my first university announcement on October 3, I listed 5 goals for the university. And I want to touch briefly on each one of them and fill you in on what we have been able to accomplish. Bolster student success initiatives. Our African American task force is up and running and continues to do good work. Through the recommendation of that task force, we have started a shuttle that is running from CCICS, El Centro, to the Brown Stop, to the main campus. Dr. Sharon Bethia was appointed as Special Assistant to the Vice President for Student Affairs for African American Student Success. Our HSI work continues under the direction of Dr. M.T. Garraton. A university-wide dialogue took place in the fall semester with approximately 150 participants. A panel will take place this semester on better collaborations of our Student Success program, and an advisory board is in the works. We have piloted the Starfish software for student success. Thanks to Barbara Sherry for leading that project. We've hired academic coaches to support the Wentworth Scholars Program. And we have a focused discussion on student success that is occurring with Forward 150. Building academic programs. Our RN to BSN program is moving forward, thanks to Dr. Shane Kofer for leading that search. The Master's in Public Health is moving forward, thanks to the good work of Dr. Jen Banis. The Master's in Social Work is starting an accelerated cohort, thanks to Drs. Jade Stanley and Troy Harden for their leadership. A second cohort was added to the Enlace program, thanks to Dr. Frank Gaitan for his hard work in reviving that program. The State Educator Preparation and Licensure Board has granted approval for our middle grades undergraduate and graduate programs, thanks to Dr. Steve Walk for working so hard on those changes. The BFA in graphic design begins thanks to our great colleagues in art. The doctorate in linguistics is in the planning phase, Thanks to Dr. Judith Kaplan-Weinger and Dr. Shahrzad Mahutian for their great work. Music department accreditation was reaffirmed with a commendation to the university for supporting the department during the fiscal crisis. Congratulations to Dr. Travis Heath and the department on that achievement. The MACDIL program exceeded enrollment expectations thanks to Dr. Doreen Wheeler and her excellent recruitment efforts. Strengthen shared governance. The Faculty Senate, the University Planning and Budget Council, the Student Government Association, and the University Advisory Council all co-sponsored Forward 150. They felt, as I did, that these crucial discussions needed to happen now and not after the budget crisis was over. And I thank every member of those committees for their leadership. We've increased regular meetings with the steering committee of the Faculty Senate. As you know, the Assembly Constitution requires that we meet once a semester. We are meeting once a month. I'd like to thank Dr. Eric Hauenstein and members of the steering committee for their leadership on the Senate. We have done great work on the Administrators Survey Task Force, and the proposed bylaws revisions are moving along quite nicely. We have had trust-building workshops led by our own Dr. Sandy Williams for our leadership groups. I'd like to thank her for lending her expertise. We are working more closely with the Civil Service and A&P Council, thanks to Judy Brewer, Borislava Melcheva, and Ray Joyce Bagiglot. I think that's right. I apologize if I botched that. Productive meetings with the UPI chapter president, thanks to Dr. Sophia Mihik for her leadership. I have regular meetings with the Student Government Association leadership and attend their meetings. I'd like to thank President Nick Martinez and all the officers on the executive board. And we held a town hall for A&P and non-negotiated civil service employees regarding a proposed salary saving plan. Share responsibility for success. We have regular press releases about faculty, staff, and student success. We began Forward 150 to get community input about future directions of the university. We recognized faculty and student work at the Research and Creative Symposia, thanks to Dr. John Albazi for his many years of dedicated service. The Lean and Learn was an effort to help faculty and staff succeed professionally, led by faculty and staff. Thanks to Dr. April Nauman for her great work. Faculty and Staff Excellence Awards, sabbatical and educational leaves are all ways in which we support our colleagues and share our success. And number 5, complete our first capital campaign. The public launch for the capital campaign is planned with March and April events. As I mentioned earlier, we met the Goodwin Challenge 30 days ahead of schedule, and we're well on our way to meeting this year's goal with good prospects of achieving the goal earlier this year. Enrollment. Now let me turn our attention to things that we care deeply about enrollment, which, as you know, is an important priority for the university as it plays a critical role in our growth and revenue. The state budget impasse has had a profound effect on our ability to recruit and retain students, both inside and outside of the Chicagoland area. Northeastern, like so many other public universities in the state, has suffered tremendous reputational and operational harm that we must work hard to overcome. Students who seek higher educational opportunities are increasingly looking outside of the state to pursue their academic goals. Illinois ranks only second to New Jersey in the number of students we export annually. We lose approximately 16,000 college-going students to other states every year. While there are many political and economic forces that determine enrollment trends that we cannot control, I am very confident in our approach to managing the things we can control. Before we get to our marketing and recruitment strategy, let's take a look at how we fared numbers-wise recently. Spring enrollment dropped by 4.3%. We had growth in the graduate school, and in the College of Business and Management, and I'd like to thank Dean Stern and Dean Bedell for their leadership. Early fall 18 projections are that enrollment will be nearly flat. While the incoming class continues to grow nicely, we still see enrollment declines due to retention of continuing students. This has to be our singular focus in the coming years. Thanks to enrollment management services, marketing, academic affairs communications, new student and family programs, advising, and student success programs for their work in bringing in the incoming class. Our recruitment strategy, there are discussions around our admission standards taking place in faculty governance in conjunction with faculty who have been studying this issue and in consultation with our student success programs. These discussions are focusing on the readiness of the students that we are bringing in and admitting. Discussions are occurring about redesigning Emerge and STP in order to serve more students with the same amount of money, with considerations of requiring summer bridge programs for students who have certain admissions decision scores. Our digital marketing campaign continues to perform well in terms of increased attendance at key events, applications, and brand awareness, with significant improvements in the number of website visits. Enrollment, retention, and graduation must be everyone's priority if we are to survive the current budget climate in the state, and one might argue, in the nation. I laid out some of my concerns in my remarks of the kickoff of Forward 150, and I encourage you to visit the Newport channel to watch the video. I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about our undocumented students. Since November 9th, when the election outcome took some of us by surprise, many of you expressed worry and fear regarding the direction of our country. You've also expressed concerns for our undocumented students. Let me reiterate what I said before. A change in the White House will not alter Northeastern's commitment to our mission and the diversity of all members of our community, regardless of their gender, ability, sexual orientation, race, ethnicity, religion, or immigration status. Since November, I have openly expressed my strong support for the Deferred Action of Childhood Arrivals, or the DACA program, signing my name to a number of letters to elected officials, including the United States President. Similarly, when an executive order from the White House called to restrict those from 7 predominantly Muslim countries from entering the U.S., I quickly denounced this as a form of religious discrimination that is not only unconstitutional, but is highly inconsistent with our university values. While we should be pleased that we're making good progress on the goals set forth since day one, I wish I could say the same about the progress that Springfield has been making on passing a state budget. Boo. Well, let's all do a collective boo on 3. 1, 2, 3. Boo. On Wednesday, March 1st, it will be 20 months since we last had a state budget. Last week, I attended the governor's budget address, and while his speech did not directly address higher education, his office released an outline of his plan to cut state support of public universities by 15% from fiscal year 15 revised levels. As always, we hope for a resolution to the state budget impasse, and especially hope that it will include adequate funding for Northeastern and all public universities in the state. As a result of the political stalemate in Springfield, we continue with plans to implement a salary savings or furlough program. The lack of a state budget for nearly 20 months has depleted our cash reserves and has forced the university to take drastic actions. We have to do something in order to fulfill our promise to our students and keep our doors open. we have decided that a salary savings or furlough program, along with strict cost savings, coupled with a hiring freeze except for critical positions, is how we can stay afloat until the next infusion of cash when fall tuition dollars come in. While we have enough money to sustain operations through the end of the fiscal year, which ends on June 30th, we won't have enough to last through the summer and into September. If we begin a salary savings or furlough program next month, we know that we can make it. So negotiations are currently underway between the university and the 5 collective bargaining units that represent Northeastern employees. My hope is that those negotiations will be completed in the coming weeks. My greater hope, though, is that there will be a solution to our budget crisis before then in our state's capital. Should we receive either an adequate stopgap funding measure or an adequate appropriation before our anticipated start date of mid-March, we will not implement the program. If we begin the program and receive funding, we will hit the pause button, refigure our finances moving forward. Sadly, more than 250 student workers who are paid through state funds will lose their job if or when we implement a salary savings or furlough program. The Illinois State University Civil Service Statute was recently amended to require that before furloughs can be implemented, and I quote, "All student appointments shall be terminated unless the student appointment is required for health and public safety, or the appointment is part of the student's financial aid, or if the student is receiving academic credit as part of the conditions of the student appointment." End quote. This is heartbreaking, especially since I know that students rely on that work to pay for school and living expenses. I have asked the Vice President for Legal Affairs, Ms. Reardon Henry, to explore Northeastern's legal options in light of this provision. And many of you might have heard my interview on WBEZ yesterday expressing my exasperation with this rule. These are the things that keep me up at night. But these are also the things that light the fire in my soul to fight for this special place that we call Northeastern and to fight for adequate and reliable state funding for higher education. As you know from my recent university communications, the past month has been a busy one in terms of our advocacy in Springfield and in the media. Along with Executive Director for Governmental Relations, Dr. Salima Perez, I watched with great interest the State of the State and the State of the Budget addresses by the governor. I joined dozens of members of our community on a day trip to Springfield to attend this State House rally to invest in higher education. And I want to thank all of you who joined me to let lawmakers know that a college degree is one of the most reliable predictors of success and one of the biggest contributors to a strong state economy. During these visits, I met with numerous representatives and senators, members of both the House and the Senate, members of the appropriation committees, and members of the Black and Latino caucuses to explain the difficult financial position that the budget impasse has put us in, and to plead for relief in the form of either another stopgap measure or an adequate appropriation. Just as noteworthy is the media attention that we've been receiving. In the past few weeks, I was interviewed locally on public radio, quoted in local online media, and participated in a report on National Public Radio's Morning Edition that was broadcast nationwide. Please refer to the university announcement that I sent out last Wednesday for a link to those interviews. Now, we can choose to live our lives in the looming shadow of the budget crisis and let it paralyze us, or we can continue to hope and plan for the future. I choose the latter, and I hope all of you will join me. Northeastern Illinois University is an enduring institution with a 150-year history. I have no doubt that the next 150 years will be even brighter if we become bolder. It is imperative that we not allow our current financial situation to keep us from charting our course for the next century and a half. Here are 5 ways that demonstrate how we're not going to take it lying down. We have come together as an engaged university community to find innovative solutions that will secure Northeastern's future. Many of you have participated in Friday's discussion that have taken part in healthy dialogues about who we are, how we operate, and the opportunities we must consider. When I started this process at the beginning of the semester, I couldn't have imagined how productive, frustrating, messy, and yet enlightening it has been turning out to be. I want to thank all of the students, faculty, staff, and alumni and friends who have participated and who will continue to participate in the discussions throughout the semester. And I join Dr. Hauenstein in encouraging you, if you haven't been to these discussions yet, please join us. Every 10 years, the university undergoes the process of reaffirmation of accreditation with the Higher Learning Commission, which is our regional accrediting body. This accreditation allows us to do important things at the university, like award federal financial aid, allows our credits to transfer to other institutions, allows our degrees to prepare students for higher level of learning. It is what many refer to as the big kahuna of accreditations. It is not only an opportunity for them to observe and verify that we meet the high standards that we promise, but it is also an opportunity to reevaluate all aspects of our university and to make sure that we maintain our commitment to excellence. This process, which is being led by Provost Vicki Ramon Lagunas, has been underway for some time now, and we expect it to culminate soon in the next few weeks. I want to personally thank the Provost for her leadership and the large group of dedicated faculty and staff who are working diligently to ensure a successful outcome. For the first time in the university's history, we will publicly launch our first comprehensive fundraising campaign in just a few weeks. The goal of our campaign, called Transforming Lives, the Campaign for Northeastern Illinois University, is to raise $10 million to fund 2 important initiatives: creating extraordinary scholarship support and creating exceptional learning environments. Stay tuned for more information about the campaign's upcoming public launch. Kudos to Vice President for Institutional Advancement, Lisa Downey, and her team for their hard work. I have often said that Northeastern has the biggest hearts of any place that I have worked. One of the many indicators of this for me was, even though we had furloughs last year, faculty and staff giving to the foundation increased at the university. Give yourselves a round of applause. In spite of severe budget constraints, Northeastern understands that the development of new academic programs that answers the need of the job marketplace is key to our future growth and survival. New programs have always been part of our evolution during these past few years, and we've introduced many of them. One program that is currently in the works is the Masters in Public Health program to be offered at the El Centro campus, which aligns with our mission. It will bring new enrollment to the university and is in response to labor force needs in the state and in the country. In addition to new programs, we are continuing to look at building a second residence hall. Though its construction might still be years away, we've learned from last fall's opening of the Nest that a rigorous residential and academic experience is one of the most sound investments that we could have made. In addition to the enhancements of our academic programs or to the university life, we must also continue to make strategic investments in recruiting as well as developing and retaining outstanding, diverse faculty and students. Finally, this year, we will embark on a year-long celebration of the university's 150th anniversary. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to mark our sesquicentennial, and we are going to do it right. We have put together a strong team of spirited individuals led by NEIU 150 chairs, Chief Communications Officer Mike Dizon, and Professor Emeritus Shelley Bannister, who will help us acknowledge our long history of service to students and the community as we look forward to the next 15 decades. I can't wait for you to join me in celebrating the kickoff of this milestone starting this fall during NEIU weekend. No matter what challenge we're dealing with now or what plans we are making for the future, everything comes down to whether it fits our university's mission and vision. We've all read these two statements many times before, but I want you to read them with me again and hear how the real beauty of these statements is that they can mean different things to different people. Northeastern Illinois University, as a public comprehensive university with locations throughout Chicago, provides an exceptional environment for learning, teaching, and scholarship. We prepare a diverse community of students for leadership and service in our region and a dynamic, multicultural world. To me, our mission is telling us that Northeastern's education isn't just about delivering instruction. It's about building strong partnerships among faculty and students and community through exploration, creation, and innovation. It is about having an engaged university community that will lead us into the next 150 years. Northeastern Illinois will be a leader among metropolitan universities, known for its dedication to its urban mission, for the quality of its programs, for the success of its graduates, and for the diversity of its learning environment. Our vision is to become a leader among metropolitan universities. This goal of excellence doesn't seem so far-fetched when you are deeply inspired by strong, dedicated students who hold the same high standards for themselves. As I stand here on this stage, looking at all of you here today, I see a strong and proud Northeastern. I also see a promising future that is brighter and bolder than ever before. I want to express my deepest gratitude to all members of the university community for your loyalty and commitment to our fine institution. The success of our university is not found in the president's office, but rather in all corners of our university, and for your unwavering support and commitment to our students. And I want to thank all of you. So, I covered a lot of ground there. I'm sure some of you have thoughts or questions. I'd like to invite you to come forward and ask your questions. We do ask that you use the microphones in the center of the theater so that people in this space and online can hear. Yes, you have to be first.
Didn't really want to do that. You did cover a lot of ground, and I really appreciate it, and I know that was just an enormously difficult task given everything that's going on, and I was really with you up until dorms and celebrations. I got to tell you that got me a little nervous because I think we got to take care of some more. I really do appreciate the forward thinking, but right now, when I'm hearing 250 students getting fired, I'm going to bring the lens in really tight right now. I teach mostly in the video production area. We have a pool of 10 cameras that we use across our courses. That's 76 students this semester, plus some additional ones. 7 work right now because we're not replacing them because we don't have the money. 2 of those 7 are partially broken. So we are really barely kind of limping along. And the people that check those cameras out to my students are, wait for it, the student aides that are about to be fired, so that we can take furloughs, so that the rest of the staff who is also trying to support, it's not just my classes, it's all the video work, all the media work for the university. Those students and that staff, they'll be down to 80%. So yeah, we are in really, really challenging times, and as I'm looking at the vision, and as I'm thinking, it's like, man, the future's important, but we gotta think about today. And I worked on the negotiations for the furloughs last year, and we all did our level best to put the emphasis on supporting the students. Let's take these days flexibly so we can stay in the classroom. Let's impact them as little as possible. I can't hide from my students the fact that we're broken, or that we're breaking, not quite broken. At some point, we just don't have anything else left to carve up. In my family, when we're down to the last piece of whatever it is, we cut it smaller and smaller, and we take one smaller, piece, because no one wants to finish it, and all of a sudden, there's nothing. So with all due respect, and this is me speaking personally, and not from the negotiation standpoint for furloughs, I'm not convinced that's the answer. I don't know that it's dramatic enough. And I'm gonna suggest next week is University Day on March 2nd. We have some opportunities to hear some speakers about what's going on in higher ed, not just here, but across it. And we also have another opportunity for more discussions on things we can do collectively to agitate and fight for other options. And I think you guys are doing what you have to do, and they're really getting the message out in media. But I think we need to be preparing for some more militant actions as well, and I think we need to be really honest with our students about whether we are able to deliver what they need, what they deserve, and what they're paying for. And we need to be looking at that stuff, like MAP grants and fronting them. We don't have the money. We need to be addressing that stuff and not letting our politicians think we can keep getting by with the tiny scraps they're sending us. I'm sorry, there's no question there.
Right, there's not a question there. I certainly understand understand and get this challenge about how do we manage the current budget crisis while we think about the future. We all know what the RFP process is like in the state of Illinois. We anticipate that it will take 2.5 years, 2.5 years, of which there's an election, to get the next set of residence halls built. American Campus Communities have told us that based on our first year enrollments and the way we think the second year is going to roll out, we will be at near capacity in the nest at the end of next year. So that means in the following year, we will have to move into a lottery situation where we will have some students who want to live in the nest that won't be able to. And a lot of parents have sent their students here because they wanted a residential experience. I've heard all the arguments. They come from close to Northeastern. Yeah, they do. But they still want a residential living experience. We have students who have come to us because they don't feel safer in their neighborhoods, but they feel safe here, right? But if we don't think forward, when we get to the end of this crisis, and we will get to the end of this crisis, if we stop in our tracks, then we have to think of what the enrollment impact is going to be if we don't have that second phase at least moving. And again, remember, it still will be a public-private partnership, right? So the expense to the university at this point is very minimal. Let me talk about celebrations. I've heard all of those arguments. We should not do the balloon drop at commencement. We should get rid of the confetti cannons. We should condense commencements in December and May and have one. We should do away with all celebrations. But you know what? For our students, this is the first time that many of them and their families are attending a university commencement. And I am not, as long as there's a dime, going to shortchange their experience on that day of all days. It is a day that they will remember forever, and I want them to remember it forever. And I hope you want them to remember it forever. And I know you do, because I see you line those aisles as they're moving up and applauding. And that's what's great about this place. And I know those are difficult financial decisions, but I'm not going to shortchange those kids. Next question.
So let me start with a brief history. Back in 2004, we collectively survived a calamitous strike. And at the end of that strike, to my recollection, faculty, those who went on strike were made whole again. And I'm wondering, since as you tell the story, we have funds to make it through the end of the fiscal year, which means if we went on furlough because there were no stopgaps before March 15th, we could go on furlough, get funds in April, May, June, in which case it would seem in some sense the furloughs were for naught, right? They were precautionary. And so I'm wondering if there's any way to plan this or work it out, or any mechanism by which, should those funds be received after furloughs but before the end of the fiscal year, in ways that would ensure our continuance and survival, if there's some mechanism to make those who make this place run whole again. I know it's difficult, and I applaud these efforts to make this place survive. I'm concerned about the students, but I'm also concerned about people's families here.
Right.
Because we lose people.
Yes.
Like, we lose
I know.
people. So if there is some way to say, you know what, we're really going to do our best to try and make people whole by whatever mechanism we could, and if people in this room felt a commitment to that, I think it would mean a lot. I'm not in the logistics, so I don't know what's possible, but.
Right. You know, I can't really negotiate with the membership, right? You know that. So a lot of this takes place in negotiations. But what I will say is that we did, in the last round of negotiations, worked out an agreement that if a percentage of appropriation came back for the days that folks actually worked but didn't get paid, we would reinstate that money. Now, I don't know where the negotiations are. I haven't been in the negotiations, but we were able to work that out. It will just depend on how the unions and the university come together to sort of figure it out this time around. Right? And I mean, I believe that if, you know, with A&P and non-negotiated, you try to make that as equitable and as fair as you can going forward. But it would really depend on the negotiations within the five bargaining units. You know, and I've heard, Tim, the stories. You know, I think maybe some of you heard me share them on the radio. I've heard the stories of the single mother who can't afford daycare for the other 4 days a week she's supposed to be here. I've read the feedback forms of the person who hasn't recovered from the last furlough program and is likely to lose their house and go through bankruptcy. I've had parents tell me that they have to change the college plans for their kids as a result of this furlough program. I get it. I get it. I think about it every night. I worry about it every night. Here's what I want you to know. I'm out there every day doing everything I can to try to avoid it. I'm in the media, I'm down in Springfield, I'm huddled around the table with the VPs looking at every single fund, every single dollar, every open position to make sure that I can minimize the impact on this community that I care so much about. I'm committed to that. And if you go around and talk to some of my direct reports, they will tell you, I just sat with marketing the other day, how much can we really cut and still deliver the incoming class? Right? Every open position. So I get it, right? But this is about trust, right? And just as I'm trusting you in Forward 150 to help with the discussions on the future directions of the university, I'm asking you to trust me and know that I'm out there every day advocating, fighting, talking to the media about these issues, trying to get a resolution to the stalemate, right? If they would just give us the money, right, we would be fine, right? We would be okay. And what's even more maddening about this is we have a history of being good stewards with state money by building the cash reserve to help us pay for deferred maintenance and some of the things that the state hasn't been doing for decades. Now, regrettably, that's all gone. So now where do I come up with $200 million to think about the deferred maintenance, which isn't just making rooms look pretty, right? It's about air conditioning units that are getting ready to go out. It's about an electrical grid problem. We just had a presentation by Jean Patillo yesterday about technology, that my dogs had a long lesson about the problems of technology. So I get it. I get it. But here, we have to trust each other. And it's not just my job, it's everyone's job, right? I saw people out from the UPI and asked me, passing out papers, passing out buttons, passing out brochures. We all have to be engaged at that level. We all have to be calling our representatives. We all have to be calling our senators. When your unions say show up in March, show up in March. Because unless there is collective pressure, there doesn't seem to be a solution in the near future. And if I can find another way out of it, believe me, I'll take it, because I don't want to take one more dime out of anyone's pocket in this room. That isn't the goal. But the goal is to keep our doors open until the fall.
I heard you on WBZ. I was washing the dishes, and much to my surprise, there you were, and I hope there's more of it, because I thought it was a pretty effective moment on a Saturday morning, afternoon. And if we're going to spend money on celebrations, and I love celebrations, so to build on the last two speakers, though, if we're going to spend money on celebrations, I think we also have to spend more money on protests, especially ones that are teachable moments. And I know there are opportunities coming up, and I would be remiss if I didn't mention something that maybe was just an accident, an omission, but a constituency within a constituency at this campus is the AFSCME union. We're part of civil service, but we also are a bargaining unit that's constituted as such, and many times in the past you have actually mentioned that as a component of the strengths on this campus. So I just want to refer back to our history of fighting for funds, which is not as successful as we need it to be. Stopgap funding just kicks the can down the road, and it really hasn't lessened our pain. So we really want a solution that's much greater than that. But we were part of that fight last year, if you remember. And we are committing forces again, and I want to point out to everyone, and you probably will hear it already in the news or this evening when you go home, that our members across the state are also in the forefront of the fight that if it is not successful, could lead to the doubling of health insurance premiums for all of us. Now, I don't know if you can imagine that, and if you can imagine that alongside of receiving less pay or not having a job at all. So those are the things that are at stake in us coming together and staying together, whether we're organized collectively in a bargaining unit or not, and we need to recognize one another, embrace one another, but we also have to get out there together in things like what Cindy mentioned, which is this University Day next week. There'll be a very good keynote speaker that will link us to the overall fight to defend public higher education in the state of Illinois and across the nation for that matter. We should all go and hear that speaker, and then we should, as much as we can, have all our constituents and students and the people that we serve, because that is really what we're here for. We should engage in a discussion of the activities coming up in the weeks, days, days, weeks, and months ahead so that we can avert the painful measures that we don't want to see happen and promote the solution that we know has to happen, or we won't exist as this university the way that we know and love it.
Yes, you're right. I missed AFSCME, and I don't know how that happened, but I apologize for that. But here's what I will say. I think people who know me, even when I was the provost, I think those teachable moments that, as long as they're respectful, professional, are fine. You know, the day of action last year with the coffin and the phoenix and the band, perfect. It's exactly the kind of stuff, and the speakers, is exactly the kind of stuff that we should be doing. And we've been able to work with Nanette Potee and Sophia Mihik and some of the UPI officers on this university day to take that day to focus on the problems in public higher education and the state budget impasse that has now gone on for 20 months. And I don't disagree with your sentiment that we want a long-term solution, right? But at this point, if I can take a stopgap and not have to do furloughs, as opposed to a budget, I'll take the stopgap. I will, right? I don't think it's a solution. I don't think it's the best solution because you're still holding your breath about what 18 is going to be, but it will prevent furloughs.
And follow Linda's lead and take the microphone down. I haven't gotten to hear you on WBEZ yet, but I look forward to doing that, and I'm glad that you've been out visible in the media as a spokesperson for our needs. I have a basic question of something I've heard about, but I want confirmation from you. Is it true that that NEIU has fronted the MAP grants for all eligible students this year again?
Yes.
And is it true that if we had not done that, there would not be a need for this furlough plan?
You know, I don't know whether that dollar amount would exactly make up the gap, but it certainly would have eased the financial burden, because I think it's like $7 million, basically, Michael?
The MAP funding for this year is about $6.5 million, and the shortfall of the operations budget between now and June 30th is about $8 million.
So it certainly would have eased
close.
right. And can I just I know I don't want to cut you off in terms of questions, but also I just want to highlight one more thing, is that what's interesting about the governor's budget proposal is that he does it in two ways. He says that he's giving a 10% cut to higher education across the board, and each university is taking 15%, but he's increasing MAP funding by 10%. Well, he's not increasing it, he's taking it out of our hides. He's just reappropriating it to increase MAP. And you know, that's not a bad expenditure of money. We know that the students who are eligible for it can't get it because we run out of funds. But I just think it's a little disingenuous to say that he's increasing MAP when it's at the expense of higher ed to begin with.
I agree. I just think that I think that needs to be part of the story here on campus and in the wider across the state, that faculty and staff are taking a cut because we care so much about our students that our university is paying for the financial aid that the state is not paying for. I think that that's something that needs to be made public more, because otherwise the rest of the people in the state of Illinois who are not connected to our institutions of public higher education, they don't know what's going on. I went to meet with my state senator, Dan Biss, a few weeks ago. You know, he didn't know. He knows in general that we're suffering, but he doesn't know the specifics. He has no idea. So once again, all of us need to go talk to our people, our reps, and get on their backs. I totally agree with that. One thing, I'm glad to hear you using the term furlough today. I've heard in some of your, maybe in your emails or maybe it's in reports about conversations, this referred to as salary savings. And I really think that how we frame the problem is a really important issue. How it sends a message, and salary savings just sounds like an innocuous, bureaucratic, it sounds like a good thing, right? So I think we need to, I don't know what the right term is, but I think
Right.
we need to have a term that
So, right.
makes it sound like the pain that it is, and makes it sound like the violation of our trust and our common good that it is.
So let me tell you why I use those two terms. Is because as you're going into negotiations, you have to give the unions the ability to figure out how they want to do this. And in some of the unions that I've been involved in, they would call a salary savings program if they gave back a raise and they didn't go on a furlough, right? So there's two ways that you can really do it, and I didn't want to tie the union leadership hand in any way by saying it's got to be a furlough program or nothing. Because as I learned in the last negotiations, the best solutions to this problems really came up from the union leadership on how to do it, right? So I know that I'm double messaging a little bit, but I didn't want to tie anybody's hand. And let me go back to your point about MAP and salary savings and furlough and the hits. And Dr. Perez will affirm this point. When I started messaging and going around the state capitol, I led with all of those points, right? No reaction. It wasn't until I said I had to lay off approximately 260 students that eyebrows started to go up. And I immediately went, ha, lead with that, right? So I started leading with that, and then when I came back, I said, we got to get a media strategy together about this, because this is beginning to get play. Mm-hmm. So I wish, because I do care about this issue, I'm just not sure that downstate does. Mm-hmm. I just don't think they do. So what I'm trying to do is find message points that the media will grab to get us out there as much as we can. Mm-hmm. That isn't a reason not to do it, but I'm just letting you know it hasn't gotten me much play in Springfield.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. One final point. I'm sorry to be.
That's okay. That's what this is about.
More of a dialogue. I'm happy to give up the mic for someone else. If I can preview part of the message of the really excellent keynote speaker that we're going to have on next Thursday, Robert Martiri, who's the executive director of an organization that has a really boring name, the Center for Tax and Budget Accountability. Doesn't that sound like really boring? But he's actually a very interesting speaker. We brought him here a couple years ago for one of the Economic Inequality Days. And I know part of his shtick because I contribute to his organization and I follow the messaging that they do, is that Illinois, for the long run, needs to switch to a progressive tax because, we have structural problems in the way we raise money in the state. I want to just raise as a possibility for you all to think about that maybe we need a progressive furlough system. In other words, if we're talking about whatever, if it's like last year, something like a 20% cut for however long it goes on, 20%, if you're making $30,000 a year or $40,000 a year, 20% of that is life-threatening. If you're making $150,000 a year or $200,000 a year or $300,000 a year, you should be taking more of a cut. And that's just something that I think we all need to think about in terms of having equity. And I'll sit down to let other people.
Thanks, Nancy.
I just realized I have my WBEZ shirt on, and it wasn't by design at all. The question I have is about the larger ecosystem of higher ed in Illinois and the other public universities. The thing that's really concerned me, I'm pleased that you've been out in the public with this, but it seems that at the moment that it's turned to every university for itself. And I'm actually a little bit worried about the U of I system perhaps cannibalizing other universities. They made an announcement at the beginning of this semester that they were planning to increase enrollments by like 12, 15,000. And to me, that roughly equates to Chicago State and Northeastern. I'm wondering what sort of conversations have been going on amongst the other university presidents and how you've been involved with that, if there is now more of a contentious kind of relationship and how that would play out in terms of what happened here.
Sure. what I can tell you is that the President and Chancellors meet by phone every Wednesday. And these issues really, how do I say it? No, there's not these kind of conversations going on right now. We've not heard about any merger plans. None of those have been laid on the table. I think there are some interesting developments that I will just point out and encourage all of you to watch. They did not renew Jim Applegate's contract, the head of the IBHE. And when they didn't renew his contract, they brought the executive director of the Community College Board over to serve as the chair of the IBHE. So there has been talk about consolidating boards. And now I don't know whether that means like the Illinois Board of Higher Ed, the Community College Board, and IBHE, or if that means going back to the old Board of Governors model, right? I don't know what that means politically yet, but that's something that I'm watching. In one of my meetings in Springfield, I had an opportunity to meet with Senator Althoff, an alum of the university, bright woman. And one of the things that she said to me, which I thought was really important, is higher ed doesn't have a coalition, right? We don't have a group in the House and a group in the Senate of people who are both looking for an issue to get around and also some heavy hitters that can use the nuclear option of saying, if higher ed doesn't get funded, we're not recessing. And I thought that was a really interesting piece. We have a lot of individuals who will go to the mat for us. You know, Senator Martinez will go to the mat for Northeastern every time I call. Senator Trotter will go to the mat for Northeastern every time I call. But they don't, as a group, talk about higher ed as a whole. And I've been trying to get the presidents to get behind this idea of a coalition, both in the Senate and in the House. And I've just laid the first volley on the table, and unfortunately it was, fell dead. But I will keep trying. Because I really believe that that's a smart idea, that if we could get, 8 to 10 power brokers in both chambers, that we could really begin to make a difference. I think that's one of the inherent problems of a decentralized board. Because IBHE is a coordinating board, they're not a governing board, right? In Pennsylvania, it works differently. Everyone goes to the Board of Governors, all the presidents are marched into a room, and you say, these are your talking points, don't veer from these talking points. So they can't go out and say, but my. It has to be the system. I don't know how, there's different ways to do that. It doesn't have to be that model. We don't have that in Illinois. And I think that's part of our governmental structural problem that we're suffering from in public higher ed. Tim?
I just want to make a quick comment to underline something Nancy said, which is our representatives have no idea what's going on. I had long conversations with mine, and I had to fill in every talking point, every funding point when we got, they didn't know when we got funding or not. They don't know anything. So it's hard to believe that they're doing a really good job of advocating for us, but they will listen. I've had to call 3 or 4 times, and then if I leave messages that threaten, I'm gonna run against you if you don't return my call and talk to me. And they know me well enough.
Run!
They know me well enough that I'll do it. But it is really important to make these calls and be persistent urgently, because they are listening and they will listen to the information. But I was struck by what, having the same experience as Nancy, that they really just don't have any idea. So I tried to frame everything really specifically about Northeastern's story and our students, and that we have been fiscally responsible, and that's in fact why we're in the situation we're in. And this on a positive note, I want to say, I don't know if Alice Penniman's here, but there was a great recruiting event yesterday. And we need to do more things like that, because it was very, very successful. And talking with her, she suggested, or we got out of her that she kind of initiated that.
She did.
And so we need more people to start, if you got ideas, man, do it. Because it was awesome, and I'm confident it's going to recruit students here and really help develop our community relations. And I said, it doesn't seem like this has happened before. And she said it hadn't. So it was great.
Thanks, Tim. So our time is coming to an end. I want to thank all of you for your comments and your questions. We've been talking a lot lately about how we must take care of our students and our university. But before I end our meeting today, I want to say a few words about taking care of ourselves. I have the privilege of working with some of the most committed, loyal, and dedicated people I have ever known throughout my career. You often put others first before yourselves. During these financially difficult times, I want to remind you to find joy somehow in your lives. Find a way to keep yourself healthy and happy. Many of you know that I turn to music and walking my dogs as a way to reduce stress or escape the pressure. And I hope you find your own way that works for you. I know some of you are afraid, maybe even petrified, but please know that I care about all of you individually, not only as professionals, but also on a personal level. And that's how we'll survive as a university. Hey, thanks.
Oh, yeah, hey,
Thanks. Yes. Thanks, thank you. Thanks for coming. Thanks. Thanks for coming. Thank you, thanks.